What else we got going on? Well, there was that whistleblower, the disgruntled Mr. Bright, Bright. He's bright. Um, and here's some of the things that he said. So I guess he was on CBS. Was it 60 Minutes? I'm not sure. But let's see if you think he's a disgruntled employee. Is he just acting politically? Or is he just a whistleblower and he's just right? Here are some things which we learned. He said that at January 23rd meeting, he was the only person in the room who said, quote, "We're going to need vaccines and diagnostics and drugs. It's going to take a while. We need to get started." So he was the only person in the room. What room was he in? Who else was in that room? Was it the guy who wrote the pandemic playbook? Probably not. Was the president in the room on January 23rd when he said we need these vaccines and diagnostics? How about anybody else in the room who also thought that? Was he the only guy? Was he the hero? So here's the thing. Look for the hero story. If your whistleblower has a hero story, I tried to tell them. They wouldn't listen to me. Does that sound like a whistleblower or a disgruntled employee? I had the idea. Nobody would listen to me in the meeting. As the creator of Dilbert, I appoint myself judge and jury of this question, and I vote sounds more like a disgruntled employee, but we're not done. That's not a firm judgment yet. And then Bright told Nora O'Donnell on 60 Minutes that his resistance to Trump's push for hydroxychloroquine was what, got him fired. And then he put it this way, quote, the whistleblower did, "I believe my last ditch effort to protect Americans from that drug, to protect us from hydroxychloroquine, was the final straw that they used and believed was essential to push me out." He was trying to protect the American people from a drug that is widely used in other countries successfully. He's a hero. He's trying to protect us from the drug that's widely used in other countries successfully. Now, when I say successfully, I mean they're not reporting any problems and they continue to use it. So they must think it's working, because who would still be using it if it had made no difference? Fact check me on this. Are other countries using it more since this guy said it was dangerous, or are other countries using it less because of all the problems and the people dying from it? I'm going to guess more. Wouldn't you? So it seems to be that this guy was just bad at risk management. It is a fact that if enough people take this drug, somebody's going to have a bad reaction and die. That's just a fact. It's a fact of drugs in general. And I'm going to say that he's got a little bit of a hero thing going on here. I tried to save the Americans from that drug. It was my last-ditch effort. I told them they needed protective equipment. I told them. No one would listen. They wouldn't listen to me. All right. And then here's the kicker. And I will base my final judgment on this sentence. And by the way, for those of you who have followed me long enough, you know, this is something I've said before a lot. So this won't be the first time I've made this kind of interpretation. I've made this judgment a lot. I'll just be consistent. He says, quote, "We don't yet have a national strategy." Stop. What do I say about strategy? What do I say about that employee who says, "We don't have a strategy. We don't have a strategy"? That employee is always the disgruntled employee. That's not a whistleblower. A whistleblower is not complaining about your strategy. That's your disgruntled employee. I've written about that. I've done this exact joke of the employee who says, "Well, I don't have a strategy," because strategy is not even a real thing. There's no such thing as strategy. The strategy is you do whatever makes sense at the time that you're making a decision. That's exactly what we did. And guess what? That's pretty much what the pandemic playbook said you should do too. The pandemic playbook does not say, here's your strategy, because it wouldn't make sense. Because every situation is going to be the new situation. You're going to figure out the situation. You're going to figure out what tools you have. You're going to figure out where it's hitting, who's hitting harder, and then you're going to figure out what to do. Is that a strategy? No, it's just you doing what you need to do because you're in a crisis. The dumbest guy in the room is the guy complaining you don't have a strategy. That's the person who's operating at the lowest level of understanding his world. So if he's got a hero complex and he's complaining that the company doesn't have a strategy and he doesn't understand risk management, because it wasn't just the risk that the drug was dangerous, it was also the upside potential that it made a big difference. He's acting like that part doesn't even exist. So I would say this is a guy who damn well needed to be fired. Of course, the simulation gives him the last name of Bright, B-R-I-G-H-T, and then he demonstrates that he's not. How perfect is that, really? It's like one gift after another.